Some things in the woods don't want to be found. My name is Marcus, and I've been a park ranger in the North Cascades for 11 years. I've seen lost hikers, injured climbers, and even a few who didn't make it. But what I found on the Silent Ridge Trail in October 2023 still keeps me awake at night. The North Cascades in fall are beautiful. Golden leaves mixed with dark evergreens, cold mountain air that smells like pine and rain, and fog that rolls through the valleys like something alive. The trails up there are remote. Some sections don't see visitors for weeks at a time. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was doing a routine patrol of the eastern trails. I'd done this route 100 times. Check the trailheads, look for damaged signs, make sure no one had gotten stuck overnight. It was quiet work, the kind I liked. Just me, the forest, and the sound of my boots on the gravel path. Around 10 in the morning, I reached the Silent Ridge trailhead. There was one car in the parking lot, a silver Honda Civic with Washington plates. The driver's side window was cracked open about 2 inches. I wrote down the plate number out of habit and checked the dashboard. There was a trail map, a half-empty water bottle, and a parking pass dated for the day before. Someone had been here since yesterday morning and hadn't come back yet. I radioed it in. Dispatch told me to check the trail and report back in an hour. Standard procedure. Most of the time it's nothing, someone decided to camp overnight, or they're just slow hikers. But something about that car bothered me. The window being open, even just a little, didn't make sense. It had rained the night before. I started up the trail. The first mile was easy. Smooth dirt path, well marked. Birds were singing, squirrels darted between trees. Everything felt normal. But around the second mile, the forest changed. The trees grew taller and closer together. The sunlight barely reached the ground. The temperature dropped at least 10 degrees, and the air smelled damp and metallic. That's when I noticed the silence. No birds, no wind, no insects. Just my footsteps and my breathing. In 11 years, I'd never heard the forest go that quiet. It felt wrong, like the woods were holding their breath. I kept walking, slower now, listening. My hand moved to the radio on my belt without thinking. Then I saw the backpack. It was sitting in the middle of the trail, about 20 feet ahead. A blue day pack, the kind weekend hikers use. It was upright, leaning against a rock, like someone had carefully set it down and walked away. I approached it carefully and called out. "Hello? Anyone out here?" Nothing. I knelt down and opened the pack. Inside was a phone, a wallet, driver's license, male, 28 years old, named Daniel Archer. Same address as the plates on the car. Why would someone leave their keys and phone? I stood up and looked down the trail. That's when I saw the footprints. They were faint, pressed into the mud from yesterday's rain. Boot prints, men's size, heading up the trail. But there was something strange. Every few steps, the prints got deeper on one side, like the person was limping or dragging something. I followed them. The prints led off the main trail and into the trees. That was the first rule broken. Never leave the marked path. I hesitated, then followed. The ground was soft, and the prints were clear. But after about 50 feet, they just stopped. Not faded, not covered. They just ended in the middle of a small clearing, like someone had vanished. I turned in a slow circle, scanning the trees. The silence pressed in on me, thick and heavy. Then I heard the voice, faint, distant, calling from somewhere deeper in the woods. "Help!" It was weak, barely audible. I grabbed my flashlight and radio. "Dispatch, I've got a possible hiker in distress off trail on Silent Ridge. Moving to investigate." The voice came again. "Help! Please!" I pushed through the underbrush, following the sound. It led me down a slope, through thick ferns and over fallen logs. The trees here were massive, old growth, centuries old. Their branches twisted together overhead, blocking out almost all the light. "I'm coming! Keep talking!" I shouted. "Help! It was closer now, just ahead. I broke through a wall of ferns and stopped. There was a man lying on the ground. He was on his back, arms at his sides, staring straight up at the canopy. He was wearing hiking boots, jeans, and a gray jacket. His face was pale, his lips slightly blue. I rushed over and dropped to my knees beside him. "Sir, can you hear me?" He didn't respond. I pressed 2 fingers to his neck, searching for a pulse. Nothing. His skin was cold, stiff. I pulled back, my heart pounding. This man had been dead for hours, maybe since last night. But I just heard him call for help. I stood up, breathing hard, and looked around. The forest was still silent. No wind, no animals, just me and the body. I raised my radio, but my hand was shaking. "Dispatch, this is Ranger 47. Do you copy?" Static. "Dispatch, do you copy?" More static, then a brief crackle. No response. I tried again. Nothing. My radio was dead, even though it had been working 5 minutes ago. That's when I heard the footsteps. Slow, deliberate, crunching through the leaves behind me. I spun around, hand moving instinctively to the canister of bear spray on my belt. There was nothing there. But the footsteps continued, circling me, moving through the trees just beyond my line of sight. I turned again, following the sound, but I couldn't see anyone. The footsteps stopped. Then I heard the voice again. "Help!" It was coming from the body. I looked down. The dead man was still lying there, eyes open, unmoving. But the voice was coming from him, from his direction, low and hollow, like it was being pulled up from somewhere deep underground. "Help me!" I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a root. My mind was racing. Dead men don't talk. This wasn't possible. I had to get out of here. I had to get help. I turned and ran. I crashed through the forest, branches whipping at my face, my boots slipping on wet leaves. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. I just ran, trying to find the trail, trying to get back to something familiar. Behind me, I could hear it. Footsteps, faster now, keeping pace with me. And that voice calling out over and over, "Help me! Help me! Help me! Help!" I broke through the tree line and hit the main trail. I didn't stop running until I reached the parking lot. My truck was there, exactly where I had left it. I jumped in, locked the doors, and grabbed the handheld radio from the dash. "Dispatch, this is Ranger 47. Do you copy?" This time it worked. "Ranger, we copy. What's your status?" I was breathing so hard I could barely speak. "I found the hiker. He's dead. I need backup at Silent Ridge immediately and send someone else to retrieve the body. I'm not going back in there." There was a pause. "Copy that. Backup en route. ETA 20 minutes. I sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at the trailhead. The forest looked normal again. Sunlight filtering through the trees, birds starting to sing. Like nothing had happened. When backup arrived, I led them to the area, but I stayed on the main trail. I told them where to go. They found the body exactly where I said it would be. Daniel Archer, 28, cause of death suspected to be exposure and hypothermia. He'd likely gotten lost the day before, wandered off trail, and succumbed to the cold overnight. But here's the thing they didn't put in the report. When they brought his body out, the lead investigator pulled me aside. He looked shaken. "Marcus, you said you found him around 11 this morning, right?" "Yeah, why?" He hesitated. "The coroner estimates he died around 6 p.m. yesterday, at least 17 hours before you found him." I nodded. "That matches the timeline." "Right, but..." He looked back at the body bag being loaded into the van. His boots. They were covered in fresh mud. Wet mud. Like he'd been walking this morning. I didn't say anything, because I knew what he was implying. Daniel Archer had been dead since last night. But something had been moving him, walking in his boots, calling out in his voice. I transferred out of the North Cascades 3 months later. I told him it was for personal reasons, But the truth is, I can't go back to that trail. Because sometimes, late at night, I still hear it. That voice, calling from the woods. Help! Me! And I know, deep down, that it wasn't Daniel asking for help. It was something else. Something that wanted me to find him. Something that wanted me to come closer. If you want to hear more stories like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.
Sometimes, the things people leave behind are better left alone. My name is Sarah, and I've been a ranger in the Appalachian region for 6 years. I love my job, but there are places in these mountains that don't feel right. Places where the trees grow too close, where the air is too still, and where you get the feeling you're being watched. One of those places is Deep Hollow. Deep Hollow is a valley about 3 miles off the main hiking corridor. It's not on any of the tourist maps. The trail leading down there is overgrown and barely visible. Most rangers avoid it. There's no reason to go down there. No campgrounds, no scenic views, nothing. Just thick forest and a creek that runs through the bottom. But in August of last year, I had to go. We'd received a report from a hiker who claimed he saw smoke rising from Deep Hollow. Probably nothing, maybe a lightning strike or an illegal campfire, but we had to check it out. Wildfires are no joke out here. I went alone. It was a Friday afternoon, warm and humid, the kind of day where the air feels heavy. I parked at the old logging road and started down the trail. It took about 40 minutes to reach the valley floor. The descent was steep, and by the time I got to the bottom, I was covered in sweat. The creek was running low, just a trickle between moss-covered rocks. The trees down here were old, thick oaks and hemlocks that blocked out most of the sunlight. Everything was green and damp and quiet. I followed the creek downstream, looking for any sign of fire. No smoke, no charred wood, nothing. I was about to turn back when I saw it. A cabin. It was small, maybe 12 by 12 feet, built from rough-cut logs that had turned gray with age. The roof was flat and covered in moss. There were no windows, just a single door on the front, painted dark red and weathered by time. I'd worked this area for 6 years, and I'd never seen this cabin before. I approached it slowly, calling out, "Hello? Anyone home?" No answer. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open with my boot. It creaked loudly, and the smell hit me immediately. Damp wood, mildew, and something else. Something sour and metallic like old meat. Inside, the cabin was empty. No furniture, no belongings, just 4 walls, a dirt floor, and a ceiling so low I had to duck my head. But there was something on the walls. Scratches. Deep gouges in the wood, running from floor to ceiling, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, covering every surface. They were jagged and chaotic, like someone or something had clawed at the walls over and over. I ran my fingers over one of the gouges. It was deep, at least a half-inch into the wood. This wasn't done with a knife. This was done with nails or claws. I stepped back outside and took a breath. My radio crackled. "Ranger 2-3, what's your status?" I pressed the button. "I'm at the bottom of Deep Hollow. No sign of fire, but I found an old cabin. Looks abandoned." "Copy. Wrap it up and head back before dark." "Will do." I should have left right then, but something made me walk around the cabin. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe? Or something else. Behind the cabin, I found the bones. They were half buried in the dirt. Small bones, animal bones, arranged in a circle about 6 feet across. In the center of the circle was a wooden post driven into the ground. Tied to the post was a piece of cloth, faded and torn, fluttering in the breeze. I knelt down and looked closer. The bones were old, bleached white by the sun, but the cloth was newer. I untied it and held it up. It was a strip of fabric, maybe from a shirt or a jacket, and written on it in dark ink were 2 words: "Stay out." I dropped it and stood up, my heart hammering. This wasn't just some old abandoned cabin. Someone had been here recently. Someone who didn't want visitors. I turned to leave, and that's when I heard the door slam. The cabin door had shut, hard. I spun around, staring at it. There was no wind. The air was completely still. I walked back to the front of the cabin. The door was closed tight. I tried the handle. It didn't budge. I pulled harder. It felt like it was locked from the inside. "Hello?" I called out. "Is someone in there?" No answer. I pressed my ear to the door. I could hear something, a faint sound, rhythmic and slow, like breathing or scratching. I backed away and grabbed my radio. "Dispatch, I need backup at Deep Hollow. Something's not right here." Static. "Dispatch, do you copy?" The radio crackled, then went dead. I checked it. Full battery. No signal. The scratching sound got louder. I could hear it clearly now, coming from inside the cabin, long, slow scrapes against the wood, like fingernails dragging across a chalkboard. It moved from one wall to the next, circling the interior, faster and faster. Then it stopped. The door flew open. I stumbled backward, nearly falling. The inside of the cabin was pitch black, even though it was the middle of the afternoon. I couldn't see anything inside, just darkness. And then I heard the voice. Low, raspy, barely human. "Stay out." I ran. I didn't think. I just turned and ran, crashing through the underbrush, following the creek upstream. My boots slipped on wet rocks, and branches tore at my clothes, but I didn't stop. I could hear it behind me, footsteps heavy and fast, pounding through the leaves. I glanced back once, just once. There was something following me, tall and thin, moving between the trees, its limbs too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. It didn't run, it glided, like it was floating just above the ground. I pushed harder, lungs burning, legs screaming. The trail was just ahead. I could see the slope leading up out of the valley. I scrambled up, using roots and rocks to pull myself forward. My hands were bleeding, but I didn't care. When I reached the top, I looked back. The thing was standing at the edge of the tree line, half hidden in shadow. It didn't follow me up the slope. It just stood there, watching. Then it turned and disappeared back into the valley. I made it to my truck and drove straight to the ranger station. I told them everything. They sent a team down the next day to investigate. They found the cabin, they found the bones, but the scratches on the walls were gone. The inside was clean, empty, like it had been scrubbed. They sealed off Deep Hollow. Officially, it's closed due to unstable terrain. But I know the real reason. Because 2 weeks later, another ranger went down there. He didn't come back. They found his radio at the bottom of the valley, smashed to pieces. And carved on a tree nearby were 2 words. Stay out. I don't go near Deep Hollow anymore. And if you ever find yourself in the Appalachians and you see a trail leading down into a dark valley, turn around. Don't ask questions. Don't investigate. Just leave. Because some places aren't abandoned. They're protected.